So welcome to our informational session on what's happening in 2020. Tonight we are here with our partners, the Plymouth Chamber of Commerce, Destination Plymouth, Plymouth 400 of course, the Police Department, the Plymouth Police Department, and the Plymouth Bay Cultural District. So we've partnered together to be here tonight, and everybody, you probably received multiple invitations to this from different organizations. But we are starting to really come together for 2020. We're in January of 19, and we will do another one of these informational sessions in about 6 months. But in the meantime, we welcome you to certainly come visit us at our office at 6 Main Street Extension, the post office building, or email us. I wanted to just introduce our staff for a minute so that you're familiar with who is at Plymouth 400. So, and I can't see them. So, Brian Logan, where are you? He's right back there doing AV. We have Cheryl Soares. Cheryl's right back there in the lobby as well. We have Kelly Parham, who's out welcoming people. We have Nat Arata, who is over here on the side, and we have Caroline Quinn, who is our honorary staff member and does a lot of marketing work for us. So I bet you're excited about what's coming up. I know we are. I want to first introduce you to Amy Naples, the executive director of the Plymouth Area Chamber of Commerce. She's going to say a few words, and I'm going to get out of her way.
Good evening. Great to see you all. As Michelle said, I'm the executive director for the Plymouth Area Chamber of Commerce. Our chamber is a regional chamber that covers 9 communities on the lower South Shore, and we are the voice of 750 businesses. As a business organization that's celebrating our 70th year this year, which we are very excited about, we couldn't be more excited about the Plymouth 400 and the commemoration. This will probably be one of the largest celebrations in our lifetime. So the full year of signature events and programs planned for 2020 and the positive impact it will have on all the local businesses is very important to all of us, especially anything from hair salons to bakeries. Every business is going to feel a great boost from 2020. The additional visitors, community members out spending money. As the Chamber plans for the 400th anniversary, you can expect to see programming, educational opportunities from top experts regarding how your business can handle the influx of customers, staffing your business during the peaks, and is your business 2020 ready? So we're going to also create a strong network so that businesses will team up together, offer programs, incentives for people to come to your neighborhood. So the Plymouth Chamber of Commerce, we feel, is your best resource for the business community to come and talk to myself, my wonderful staff, and talk about how you can get involved. We will work closely with Paul Cripps and Michelle for this great celebration, and we're certainly looking forward to it. Another thing I want to add is we do have a public art display, the Lobster Corral, which everyone's familiar with. We have another one coming up this year, being released in the late spring, early summer, and we will announce that special piece of artwork at our annual meeting. So please stay tuned for that, but it's going to be a great partnership with the 400. Thank you.
Okay, how many people in the room have been sick in the last week? I've got my my Cepacol up here just in case, my water. So I'm going to just do an overview of the plans for the 400th anniversary. You follow along on the slides. We're going to take questions, as I said, at the end. And Chief Mike Botieri, who's also here, is going to be talking about security and safety. And as you know, Paul Cripps is over there and Amy. So everyone's here to ask questions. And I think Melissa Kenny, are you in here? Here you are. Melissa Kenny with the Plymouth Bay Cultural District. So what's happening in 2020? Okay, Brian. So we talk about this. Everyone in this room pretty much is from Plymouth or the surrounding area. But people know about this history way beyond here, obviously. We have a whole holiday that's dedicated to this moment in history, Thanksgiving. And so we do have a great opportunity, marketing opportunity, to interest all of those people, all Americans and Europeans and people from around the world, to come here and learn about really what is America's founding story. It is a legacy story, and it is really the story that we tell ourselves when we talk about why we all came here. And so America, we say America, not just Plymouth, not just Massachusetts, but America is poised for a commemoration of great proportions. This is called a four-nation commemoration. That is because we're working with Mayflower 400 in the UK, Leiden 2020 in the Netherlands, and the two federally recognized tribes of the Quina and the Mashpee Wampanoag, and of course the United States. So it is a four-nation commemoration. There are lots of collaborations some of you in this room are part of with our UK and Netherlands and Native American partners. There's a lot going on that in this commemoration that has not ever happened before, and part of that is bringing those partnerships together. It is the story of two cultures, and we definitely, this time around, in the 21st century, need to acknowledge more about the Native people than we have in the past. In the past, we have definitely acknowledged that the Native people were part of the survival of the Pilgrims. Without them, the Pilgrims might not have survived that first winter. But beyond that, we don't learn much about the Native people, the Wampanoag people of the area. So the commitment of Plymouth 400, which really started long before I was hired here with the board of directors, but the commitment was that Native people would be involved, would tell their story in their own voice without censorship. And so that is probably the most intriguing part of this commemoration. We're telling the Pilgrim story again, but even that story is misunderstood. And that story is not fully told. So with all of the organizations like the General Society of Mayflower Descendants and Plymouth Plantation and Pilgrim Hall Museum and other organizations across the state that house this information, that carry the Pilgrim side of the story, they are all doing great events and great programming as well. So it's not just signature events, and we'll talk about this later, but we're also sanctioning other events, and we have all of our partners that have parts of this story. So we have 6 themes. These are our themes: exploration, innovation, religious expression, self-governance, immigration, and Thanksgiving. Most of these are fairly self-explanatory. We tip our hat to the explorers who came before, who got us where we are today. Innovation, well, the Pilgrims needed to be innovative once they got here because they couldn't do things the same way they did before. And so some of that innovation came from just working hard and figuring it out, and some of that innovation came from learning skills from the Native people. But in this commemoration, we really want people who can't come here to also be able to engage. So we're looking at different ways of using digital media, of using AR and VR, augmented reality and virtual reality, to make this so that people can interact with it, even if they can't be here. And if they are here, that makes it even more fun, because the AR and VR we're working on would be something that they could follow along a trail or stop in front of a monument and get some more information. The theme of immigration, it's funny because this was literally done probably in 2009 or between 9 and 12, when we had consultants who were working to help us to form what the messaging would be. And so immigration was part of that. We want to pay homage to the many waves of immigrants that came here after the Pilgrims. But one of the things we know about the Pilgrims is, out of the first four colonies, the Pilgrims were the first colony that brought women and children right away. They were here for different purposes. The other colonies were formed for commercial purposes, and later on they started to bring women over so that they could really build the colony. But Plymouth was the first colony where women and children were already here in the first pass, and in many other ships to come. And then Thanksgiving, yes, we talk about Thanksgiving as the holiday, but Thanksgiving with a small t is really important to this commemoration. So what that means is giving thanks and giving back to your community, to your country, and to your world. And we have an event called Illuminate Thanksgiving, which embodies that idea. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But so those are the themes. Okay, so we're going to launch into the signature events and programs. And I will give you a little bit of background on each of these signature events and programs. And again, you'll be able to ask questions later. Just so you know, in the back at the tables, there are brochures that have these events and programs in them. There's also a brochure on our native exhibit, which we'll get to in a while. And we also have, our partners have membership information out there on the tables and event information. We have our business partnership and organizational partnership information back there. So it's a really good place to kind of get information, bring it back, and then give us a call, when you've read through it, and we can explain further. So the opening ceremony is April 24th, 2020. It takes place in Memorial Hall and the surrounding area. There will be tented events outside of Memorial Hall. There'll be places where the actual live activities inside Memorial Hall, the performances, et cetera, will be broadcast in viewing areas so that the general public and others can see them. Think in terms of a Kennedy Center Awards ceremony, where you have spoken word, you have performances, you have talking heads. This is where we will be asking we have asked to invite British royalty, the Netherlands monarchy. The governor just sent out letters to past presidents and the current president. He will be sending out letters to all the past governors in the coming weeks. So, and that is all done through the protocol, the appropriate protocol, which really has to come from the governor of the state. And also on the other side for specifically British royalty. Ooh, hello, sorry if you're not hearing me. British royalty, we are working with our consulate in Boston, Harriet Cross, and the British embassy in Washington, D.C. Okay. The Mayflower 400th official maritime salute, excuse me, I'm starting to lose it, is Saturday and Sunday, June 27th and 28th, on the waterfront. Now that the harbor is dredged, and I'm sure you've all seen it, and I see people out there being fascinated by the dredging. Now that the harbor is being dredged, we can do things we haven't done here in Plymouth before. And I know that that Destination Plymouth, Plymouth County, and Paul Cripps are working on getting some small cruise ships interested in coming here. That would be cruise ships like the Blount cruises or American Cruise Lines. They're smaller ships, but they carry about 250 to 300 passengers, and they're usually a higher end a trip for those people. So we can welcome those kinds of cruise ships here in 2020. We can have Class B tall ships, which we're planning to do for this maritime festival. We want to salute the Mayflower, too, during this maritime festival. There will be Coast Guard demonstrations. There will be possibly some parachuting teams. We will have some entertainment as well on the waterfront. We're working with other organizations to bring in music and dance and some maritime activities like a children's tent where they can have a touch tank and just learn more about our oceans. And we will be doing a lobster bake, which we are working with some of our partners on. It will be several seatings of a traditional lobster clam bake. It will be a ticketed event, and we hope to do 3 to 4 seatings per day on that. Okay. The next event is a Wampanoag Ancestors Walk for the first time ever. Wampanoag people carrying the placards of the 69 villages of the native people will walk through the streets of Plymouth, Main Street to Water Street, and they will stop and do a blessing at different places where important where their ancestors may have walked or where important things happened here in Plymouth. So they will be inviting other tribal people, and then they also invite anyone who wants to join them on the walk to join them after the native 69 placards are presented. The official State House salute happens in Boston. This is for the governor and legislators and our Boston partners to really elevate the idea of Plymouth 400 in the minds of our citizens of Massachusetts and beyond. And so we are working to get them to bring the Bradford Journal up from the archives, the basement of the State House, and to be on display in the State House that day. We will also have our native exhibit, Our Story, 400 Years of Wampanoag History, will be on display that day inside the State House. There will be a ticketed event inside the State House, but the general public can come in and do tours. There'll be tours of the State House that day, and it is a Monday, so the State House is open. And we're hoping to do most of this ceremony on the front steps, which doesn't happen very often. And so that's something that the State Commission and Plymouth 400 and our partners are working toward. The Embarkation Festival. So this embodies the multicultural, the idea of immigration. So the Embarkation Festival, we are working, we don't have it nailed down yet, but we're working with the county commissioners and the sheriff's office to do this on the county land on Obery Street. It could set a precedent for, if it works out well there, for possibly doing other things there. But we needed an open space that was fairly large, and that, that's near a lot of parking. It's near the police station and the hospital. It's a really good spot. So we will be, there will be tented areas for each of the different countries that are represented. We have, we're getting all sorts of requests in to perform from Morris dancers and singers and Portuguese singers and dancers. We had all of the Boston consulates were here back in the fall to learn about what we're doing with Plymouth 400 and to learn specifically about this event and how they might participate and help to build out that that multicultural feeling. But it'll be the food, the art, the music, and the dance, and the material culture of the many cultures, waves of immigrants who came here after the native people and the English pilgrims. So that is September 19th and 20th. And that week of September 14th and the 19th and 20th is when the General Society of Mayflower Descendants Triennial Congress is also in town. And so the Mayflower will be taking a sail to Provincetown that week, as well as, and GSMD will be visiting Provincetown and Plymouth, and all of their meetings will be here in Plymouth. So you'll see a lot of Descendants around town. We've experienced this before, but we expect there'll be a lot more Descendants in town for 2020 for the 400th anniversary. The Indigenous History Conference is a first-time event. It's going to be hosted at Bridgewater State University, so another event that doesn't take place here. But that area is very important for Native history. There was a lot of Native activity in that area. And so there will be breakout sessions and keynote speakers. It's a 3-day conference. It will end in a traditional powwow on the campus. And it will cover pre-contact life, colonization, and modern life for the Native people. And so it will be very robust, and we have some great speakers that are going to be coming to that. Illuminate Thanksgiving. So I mentioned this earlier. We've been doing an event called Illuminate Thanksgiving since 2014. I think it started 3 or 4 months. It was actually, we pulled it off 3 or 4 months after I was hired. Cheryl and I kind of did it together that first year. And it was cold as anything, and we did it on the waterfront, and we used the grandstand from the parade. Since then, we have expanded the event. We do part of it, this year we did part of it in the Pilgrim Meeting House, which is the former First Parish Church at the top of Leiden Street. We did a beautiful, meaningful event inside of there with youth, young people who performed music and spoken word. We give our One Small Candle Award to a young person who has changed many lives. And this year it went to a young woman named Valerie, who started the Validation Project. And it is a result of her being bullied when she was in junior high. And she now does programming in 1,000 schools. Her programming for the Validation Project is in 1,000 schools around the country, and she's going to be doing programming here at Plymouth Public Schools as a result of her being here to accept her award. So we're building, we now have 5 people who've won that award, young people who've won that award, and we're always looking for new sources for that award. The other thing about Illuminate Thanksgiving is illumination. So this year we had the schools, the art students in the schools did a themed procession of beautiful sea creatures. And that was the theme this year. And so when you looked up Leiden Street as they were coming down, it was something that we had never really seen before, at least maybe in recent history, where Leiden Street was just beautifully lit with a procession of people coming down from that meeting house. And then we ended on the waterfront with some programming on the waterfront that was, again, very inspirational, youth-oriented, and we had a lovely evening. In the future, we hope to do some lighting of buildings. We're looking into doing 3D projection mapping, in which case we would tell the story of the many different parts of this story on buildings throughout town, and end on Leiden Street, where we would project what it might have looked like, or what a portion of it might have looked like in the 17th century. That's all based upon funding, of course, as all of this is, but we're working really hard to make that a reality, and that's something that Plymouth can continue to do. Once all of that content is done to light those buildings, that's something that this community can continue to do over the November holidays, or throughout November each year, to tell the story in a different way. It also brings people into town at night. It allows them to experience something that's a spectacular, it's a spectacle, but it doesn't require a lot of human resources. So it's a really great event for those reasons. We work very closely with America's Hometown Thanksgiving Celebration. We have a float in the parade each year. Ollie DiMacedo and myself have regular phone calls every month in order to plan for 2019, which we look at as maybe a kickoff to 2020. And so we're looking at this year doing more with the parade and more with Illuminate Thanksgiving. Okay, next. Okay, so those are the signature events. Now, before I get to this, I want to explain what a sanctioned event is. A sanctioned event is any event either already existing or being created specifically for 2020 that any other organization can do and be on the official calendar, so that we don't just have a few events peppered throughout the year, but whenever anybody's here, they can look at the official calendar and they can see that there's maybe a lecture at Pilgrim Hall Museum on, 17th century material culture. That definitely is something that ties in with the 400th anniversary. That would be on the calendar. It can be as small as maybe a lecture. It can be as large as a festival. So we are working with the Chamber of Commerce so that their events that they do on a regular basis, like the Waterfront Festival, carry the themes, some of the themes and some of the goals of the 400th anniversary in 2020. And of course, it will revert back to whatever other themes and goals they want to commemorate or celebrate. But we, in 2020, are asking anyone who wants to do a sanctioned event to just make it fit in with some of those themes that you saw. Doesn't have to be all of them, maybe one or two, and then some of the goals. The top goal, which is to bring in tourism and economic development to the state of Massachusetts and to the communities of Plymouth and the surrounding area. So it is an economic development project for the most part. Yes, we have a lot of history to impart, and we have a lot of historians and scholars that are working with us to help us to do that. But as the state, does fund us to a degree, through earmarks and has been since 2012. Because they invested that funding, our promise is to market and bring more people to the Commonwealth. And so that's what we're doing. So those sanctioned events, if you would like to make a sanctioned event or put a sanctioned event on the calendar or create a sanctioned event, you can do that, and you can contact Cheryl Soares in our office. She's our program manager, and she can send you the forms that will allow you to fill out those forms, and then we put those up on our calendar. We are in the midst of a website redesign, so you're not going to see them up there yet. We will be launching the redesign sometime in March, and that's when our calendars will be more filled up with those sanctioned events. And we're going to continue to accept sanctioned events. We'd love to get as many as we can up there by March of this year, but we will continue to accept sanctioned event applications throughout 2019 and probably into early 2020. So think about that. If you don't have anything in mind yet, I'm sure something will come to you, and just contact our office, and we'll make sure that that happens. So we have a couple of legacy projects, and this falls somewhere between a tourism economic development project and a legacy project. This is our official Plymouth 400 group tour, and it takes people from Boston to Provincetown and everything in between to learn the whole story and to experience all of the history that relates to 1620 and beyond. So we have our partners in Provincetown, our partners in Boston, and our partners in Duxbury and Aquina and Mashpee and other places around the Cape, Eastham, Wellfleet, who are all forming their own 400th anniversary committees or have formed them. And they are part of this tour. We administer this tour through one tour operator, and that is because some of the visits to the native sites are different than what they've been in the past. So native sites tend not to welcome buses because they don't have the bandwidth to, or they haven't thought that they have the bandwidth to accept buses. But we're helping them to learn how to do that so that after 2020, any tour operator can book into the Mashpee Meeting House or the Mashpee Wampanoag Museum or the Aquina Cultural Center. So Gail Arndt of Tour Trends, who has been in the business a very long time, administers this for us. She also goes to trade shows on our behalf, along with our partners in the room here, Bob Avila, Paul Cripps. There's a lot of people here. I think Donna's sending someone that go to these group tour shows, and they'll be carrying with them profile sheets from us and talking about what's happening in 2020 as it relates to their business and also as it relates to the commemoration. So this is, we have a staff of 5 people, including me, and so having help with this through our partners is really important. And having help spreading the word through the businesses in town and through the citizens of the town is also very, very important. So we hope that this isn't the end of the line, that you'll continue to communicate with us and we'll continue to communicate with you what's happening. So the 1620 History Trail is a trail that kind of mimics what that, or actually that group tour mimics this history trail, but it cites all of the authentic spots where things happened. So Cornhill, First Encounter Beach on the Cape, Provincetown, sites in Plymouth, sites in Duxbury, well, the Alden site in Duxbury, and New England Historic Genealogical Society, where many of the genealogies of the early pilgrims and beyond, early 17th century visitors to this area would have been. So they're authentic places. We haven't come across any evidence that this history's been strung together in this way before. So this would be a first, and we're working with, like I said, many partners to make it happen. And this is where we will be using AR and VR to interpret a lot of this trail. And it will be a legacy of the 400th anniversary. Okay, next. So many of you have already seen or been or heard of our story, 400 Years of Wampanoag History. It's been at Pilgrim Hall Museum. It's been at Plymouth Public Library. It's been around the state. It was at the State House just recently in November to reveal its newest panel, which is the governance panel. So every year the Native people who are producing this exhibit add information to this exhibit each year, and we either add new panels or new information. So this year the new information was on the governance that took place in the Native tribes, and so it was fitting that we were able to do that at the State House this year. Got really good visibility there. We also, many people in this room were part of this, we also were up at the Big E, which is the 5th largest state fair. It's actually 6 states, the New England states. The 5th largest state fair in the country. And we were featured inside the Massachusetts building. We had over 40 volunteers for over 50 shifts to going up there and talking about the 400th anniversary, selling our apparel, and just getting visibility through the exhibit and through our staff and our volunteers being up there. It was a great experience. We're doing the Boston Flower Show with this exhibit this year. That's in March. So that's only 5 days. It's not the 17 days that we did for the Springfield event. But we'll be at the Boston Flower Show in March, featured there with this exhibit as well. The exhibit is traveling around in 19 and 20. It will get a new panel at the end of 19 and a new panel at the end of 20 of new information. And if anyone knows of any place that's interested in having this exhibit in their building or their place of work, then please let one of us know. Cheryl Soares or myself can take your information and see if there's a place in our calendar where we can fit that in. It usually stays in a place for 1 month, and it does have a cost associated with it because it does cost us to move it and to put on those new panels, to add those panels. So that is our story, 400 years of Wampanoag history. We have been working very closely with one of our partners, Pilgrim Hall Museum and the Pilgrim Society, on a quadricentennial park for Plymouth. Every 100 years, and really even probably more frequently than that, but every 100 years, there has been something built to honor that 200th, 300th, and now the 400th anniversary. And we weren't in a position to do what they did in the 300th, which is basically completely changed the entire waterfront, took all the industry off the waterfront and made it more of a beautification area. The portico over the rock was also done in the 300th, for the 300th anniversary. And the beginnings of Pilgrim Hall Museum were conceived during the 200th anniversary. So we have a history of being able to have some bricks and mortar, something that commemorates the anniversaries. So this quadricentennial park is at the top of Coles Hill. The land is owned by Pilgrim Hall Museum and the Pilgrim Society. And we are working in tandem with them to build a quadricentennial park where the museum can then start walks and talks, can impart new information, can interpret things on the waterfront and even things over in Duxbury. You can see the Miles Standish Monument from there, so you can start a conversation about Miles Standish. So it's a really great location, and it will be a public area where people can go and get more information about this moment in history. So that's just about everything. But does anyone have any questions on any of the actual events, programs? Yes?
Yeah, Michelle, you had some events happening April through June, and then you picked up again in September on.
Right.
What is your vision for July and August?
That's a good question. We have a lot that happens here in July and August. So we picked what we think is going to be one of our smaller events for August, which is the Ancestors Walk. We have the 4th of July. The Maritime Festival is the weekend before the weekend of 4th of July, and the 4th is on a Saturday in 2020. So that week is going to be quite busy. Now, we also have partners that are doing things in the summer, like Plymouth Plantation, like Pilgrim Hall Museum, and others who have other programs that will promote for those summer months. But we really felt, and working with Paul and his crew, and with the Mass Office of Travel and Tourism, that we were trying to keep these things to the shoulder seasons for the most part, and bring people in when they aren't already coming. We feel, and we know just from benchmarking Jamestown in 2007, and now Jamestown's doing another one this year in 2019, and the commemoration up in Montreal, that people come at all times of the year. They don't just come for signature events or sanctioned events. They don't just come, they just think that, they just assume that something's going to be going on all the time because it's the 400th anniversary. And we've said to them it's going to be a year-long commemoration. So let me give you a quick example of a sanctioned event that will kick this off. In addition to us doing Illuminate and the parade in 2019, First Night Boston is going to take on the events, the themes of the 400th anniversary, and Plymouth 400 will be the star of First Night Boston in 2019. So those are the kinds of things we're trying to do to leverage. We're not gonna bring in $20 million. That's not what we're about. But what we can do is leverage other events like that will allow us to do things in season, out of season, and really get the word out across Massachusetts. We have a state commission that was appointed by the governor, and so we really are sanctioned by the state of Massachusetts. And we want to make sure that people throughout Massachusetts know what is happening and can be part of it. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yes, Bob.
Yes, Michelle. Could you tell me when the Mayflower is going to sail and how long it's going to be in Provincetown?
I don't have all of that information right yet. The plantation's still working out dates and that kind of thing, but I do know that it will be in Provincetown for the 12th, I believe it's the 12th through the 14th, and coming back probably midweek so that it's back for the Multicultural Festival at the end of the week. It also is probably going to do another sale in 2020, but I don't have all the information on that yet, so I don't want to speak out of turn, but does anyone want to answer that question? Is somebody here that can answer that? Not just yet? Okay. So as we get more information, we will definitely let all of you know what's happening as Mayflower moves. Yes?
I didn't see a slide for the lobster bake event you talked about. Is there...
What's the date for the lobster bake?
The lobster bake is during the Maritime Festival, is during that weekend. So the lobster bake, it is the weekend before 4th of July. Yes, it is. Anybody else? Got somebody back there?
Oh, sorry. Short people.
Short? Oh, you've got a mic. Okay.
My siblings live in England, and hello.
Oh, there you go. I can hear you now.
I have family that lives in England, and over there, this is so huge. It's not even. I mean, it's really a big thing. They were building a replica of the Mayflower that they had planned to sail over. Do you know if that's still? They're still building it. Is that in any of the plans at this point in time? And then, second part of that question is they were selling tickets for people to actually make a portion of the voyage to come over.
From what I understand in talking to Mayflower 400 in the UK, that project is not definite. They did start some construction, but they're fundraising, and so they don't have an actual date currently that I know of. So I can get more information on that, and I can help to find out more about that. But right now it's being built in Harwich, England, and they are fundraising for it. So yes, they are trying to build a replica, but it didn't sound like it was. Yeah, the Arts Council England and actually their country's tourism office, Visit England, both have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars, actually a couple of $1 million in the events and programs that they're doing over there. That includes other communities besides Plymouth, England. It includes about 12 different communities in England that are participating. Basically, they're the communities where the Pilgrims either were born or worshipped or lived. And so those communities are all commemorating this as well. And that's why we call it a four-nation commemoration. We actually have a tour. The tour this group tour is part of a larger circular tour that takes people through Europe, through England, over to Holland and the Netherlands, and then back here to the United States. And so there are people who will be doing kind of the whirlwind tour, or you can just do a portion of it. So does that answer your question?
Is that tour available to the public to sign up if they're interested in participating?
We are going to, she asked if that tour was available to the public, if individuals are interested in participating on a group tour. And I have talked to Gail about setting aside a few dates where we will actually advertise the tour and populate it with individuals who would like to do it, who aren't a member of a group or aren't booking it through a tour operator. So thank you for that question. That's a good one.
Hold on.
Would there be like the AR or VR available for us to see what's going on in England at the same time as what's happening here?
Excuse me. Yes, they're also working on projects like that. We're looking at simulcasting some of these events and programs, especially with Illuminate Thanksgiving. What we would like to see is Illuminate Thanksgiving simulcast in different areas around the world, and we've been working with our friends in Shishigahama, Japan, and in Cento, Italy, to get them to actually do an Illuminate event. Doesn't have to be big, but to do a small version of the Illuminate Thanksgiving event, and get some simulcasting from there, from Plymouth, England, from the Netherlands, and then from communities across America. Yes?
Will the Native American display be on display in town 2020?
Yes, it will be on display at just about every signature event. We really want that to stay at home for 2020. We will move it around when there isn't a signature event, because we also want people to see it throughout the year. So to answer your question, yes, it will be here in town several different times in 2020.
The visitors who come not for the signature event, they would have something to see
Right.
to explain that. So if it was going to be at a set place for display.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
throughout
you know,
the
and
year.
don't forget that there will be sanctioned events, and that Plymouth Plantation and Pilgrim Hall Museum and the Antiquarian Society are all planning, and General Society Mayflower Descendants, they're all planning things, and those will also be taking place. So there will be places to visit, you know, even if there isn't an event. Certainly the museums are places that can be visited, the historic homes. You know, don't forget that a lot of the people that come here are not familiar with us or with this story. There are Americans who don't know anything about the Mayflower voyage and the native people and the collaboration or the relationship that ensued between them. It's all very much hand turkeys and you know, paper and paper collars, you know, for a lot of the country. So we got to change that. We want to dispel some myths, and we want to bring the real history to light. And that's what these organizations that teach this history every day do. And we want to make sure that the spotlight is on them as well. Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to ask Chief Botieri to come on up and talk about what's going on in town, especially those of you who own businesses, you know, during this year for safety and security.
Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate you having me here tonight to talk a little bit about the planning and what we're doing. I know a lot of business people here want to kind of know, but I think we'd start by saying, if you look at what's happening in the world, there's a lot of challenging things happening when it comes to pre-planning for any event. And Plymouth, over the last several years, has really become, I bet there's been a 200% increase in all events that we have, whether they're bike races or not. But we have a few good-sized events. You know, we have the 4th of July parade, the 4th of July fireworks, Thanksgiving Day. So we've been working those events. And I think if you've been around and seen those events, our safety and security measures have changed over the years. and I think specifically from the marathon. When we start to see these events close to home, that changes how we plan. Now, I think there's an expectation of all the citizens and businessmen that we as a police department make those changes. We don't want to panic and go overboard, but your expectation is if something should happen, we're prepared to deal with it. So there's a lot of things that happen in the background. Even if you look at the parade, Thanksgiving Day parade, I think you've probably noticed we use a lot more canines pre-event. We do a lot more emergency dogs and bomb dogs. We try to do all that stuff in preparation of people coming into a building, whether it's a memorial hall. You've seen some roads and some work we've done with the fire department and DPW, where unfortunately we feel we had to block some roads with big vehicles so no one can spear into the crowd. We identified choke points where we think that would happen. It's unfortunate we're even thinking that way, but I think there's an expectation that you expect we would. And there are several layers of security that you really don't even see, whether they're plainclothes officers in the crowd. Just the fact that I think if you look down the street at any one of our parades, you notice a lot more police. There aren't really a lot more police. It's just we're wearing high visible clothing, so we're easily noticeable. So we've made a lot of those measures. It's not all throw money at it and hire more police. It's just doing it in a smarter way. So that being said, Michelle talked a lot about the signature events. We've been meeting for over a year now with all of our partners, federal, state, local, county, and we've been working with the 400 Commission, with Dusty Rhodes, and as well as the director of MEMA, Kurt Schwartz. And these are people that have really worked on major events, whether it's the Boston Marathon or it's Sail Boston, moving people, parking people, security, backdrops when it comes to medical issues. So with those people, they're assisting us with this. We believe we're in place to make these events very safe. But they're challenging. I'm not going to lie to you, they are challenging, and they're going to be, it's going to take everything we have as far as the offices as well as all these other agencies. And these events, you have to realize, could change depending on a few different things. Some of the events could be leveled as a SEER 1 event or a SEER 2 event, which is a federal leveling of an event. And it's based on a bunch of different factors in the matrix. It's how many people, it's the area that it's at, it's who comes for dignitaries. If we have a past president or even a sitting president come, everyone knows that changes everything. Now, it changes everything, but also brings a lot of resources as well. So if that does happen, Homeland Security, who are working with us already, we'll be ready to make those changes when we get closer to the event. Some of the things that we look at are logistics and traffic and parking and all those things, road closures. And Michelle and her group are going to work closely with all the businessmen. That's really something you have to work out with Michelle. We as a police department, just like we do in any event, if someone wants to close down the street for a specific time frame, we want to make sure that the businessmen and the local people understand that, there's a cost to that, and we want to work with them, and maybe there's something we can do to mitigate that and maybe help them travel in and out if they have customers and those things. So that will all be in place. We met about a year ago, and we had probably 70 people in the room representing all these different agencies. And at that point, we talked about each event. Michelle, at the time, outlined what you saw here today. I'm not sure it was everything, because over the last year, I'm sure some have changed. So what we've done is we've taken that group of 60 or 70, we created what's called a steering committee. So the steering committee met not long ago, a few months ago, and which is about 25 people, including management in the town manager, the different commissions, the different groups, and all the different agencies, whether it's the Coast Guard, MEMA, and all your federal agencies, FBI, ATF, DEA. And we all met and we created this steering committee. Now from the steering committee, the plan is, and we're at this point now, where we're going to create what we call working groups for each event. So each signature event will have a working group with people that are representative upon, something that's a marine event, we'll have harbor masters, environmental police, Mass State Police, whatever we need that they can bring in resources to that group. And we'll create these working groups, if you will. Every working group for every event will have a representative from the Plymouth Police Department, probably from the command level, to make sure that we are coordinating this through the Plymouth Police. Everything that happens when it comes to security is going to go through one agency. That's what we're told by the 400 Commission and the people that do this, that we'll be the lead agency and we'll bring resources in to support us. So it's going to be a daunting task. We feel like we're up for it. We still have, we have other meetings coming up, and we're going to get these working groups. These working groups will come back with their recommendations to the steering committee, who will then ask questions and bring that forward to Michelle and her group. And hopefully the businessmen and the residents will have an opportunity again to share with us We're open to ideas. We want to make it the safest. Each of these events, we want them to be the safest possible. You have to have a little confidence in us. There will be a lot of support and a lot of staff and a lot of people for whatever specific event happens. If it's a medical event, I see Chris Moore here from the hospital. We'll be working closely with them. Bruce the ambulance, we might bring in other services and those type of things. Each event is specifically different, whether it comes to the need of closing a road or not, detours, moving people, one-way traffic like you see on the 4th of July, specifically the fireworks. We move people out of town in a pretty timely manner by taking all the 4 lanes or both lanes in order to move everyone in one direction. So all those plans are in place. I'm not able to, and I don't think you'd expect me to, go over each event and get really too deep into what the actual plan is. Just that there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than you realize. And that's kind of where I'm at as far as our planning stages. We feel like we're at where we need to be. So I don't know if you want me to take any questions, Michelle, or Wade, or I don't know if there are any questions. Seeing none? No, sorry.
Is there any thought of providing some level of training and preparation for those of us in the business and cultural community in terms of our own institutions? Just like we're having sort of informative meetings for content and historical information that the Forum has been providing for people, but I know, speaking as the director of Pilgrim Hall Museum, security is a huge issue for us because we see ourselves as a very visible and prominent historical site, sure, which might be then a target. How is there any plan of providing some?
Right. The plan would be to take all of those specifically. So we would entertain anyone that came forward. Obviously, we would probably be talking to you anyway. But even a businessman that wanted to come forward and say, give us your concerns, we'll discuss the security piece. There's another aspect of this that will be private security. There'll be private security involved in a lot of these different things that might layer in there with the police, okay? You just can't, you're not going to hire 500 policemen. Obviously, the cost would be extraordinary, but there are a lot of different measures in some of these events, including the signature events, where private security is going to be a major part of that. So that private security piece would layer into that piece as far as the needs of each different area, specifically to what the event is. Go ahead.
Let's follow up on that. And what about as residents and citizens? Like, what is there going to be any kind of, what should we be aware of as the people that are going to be on the streets and are in the community every day? Is there any? I'm just wondering if there's some kind of public training or.
Well, I'm not quite sure what you mean by training, but I mean, as these events come closer, they'll be continually tweaked because they'll change. And when they change a little bit, that might change how we plan and how we move people. All of that piece of it, I mean, the entire safety event is security plan is not going to be public, obviously. But the piece that affects the citizens, the closure of roads, and the type of things that we think would affect citizens will be open. I mean, we're not going to hide exactly what we're doing for road plans, how we're moving people, where they're going, where the parking is, who we're using for private security. All of that will be open to discuss and share with you. Most of that sharing will go through through Michelle and her people in the committee. And we'll share with them how we're doing things and what things can be shared. So I'm not sure that answers your question because I'm not sure what you mean by training. But
I mean, we kind of know if we see a bag left on the subway, we should call about that. Kind of basic things like this is a big event and when we're talking about this level of security, are there things that we as citizens should be aware of that we can be helpful in the security process? Sure,
I mean, there are. I mean, it's not something we can go over now, but I think we can clearly prepare something like that and maybe offer another meeting like this as it gets closer and go over. Here's the plan we have. Once we get the plan, we'll have a little bit more of an idea of what we expect of citizens. I mean, I think you hit the main one. You see something, you say something looks out of place. We're looking into a lot of different camera systems. We're looking to purchase some cameras that are mobile that we can put up pre-event, go back and check them afterwards. We'll probably have some cameras that'll be monitored. We're not sure yet. That's a personnel issue. So cameras have a lot of value. We have a lot of cameras that they have value if you want to go back and see who did something. We're a little more interested in stopping it before it happened. So we're struggling with all of that because that's a personnel issue too. But yeah, I certainly don't see why we wouldn't have an opportunity to be open to take more questions and put together, 10 bullets on what we expect you people to see. And if you see something to say it, we certainly can do that. I don't see that as being a problem at all. Yeah.
I don't know if it's something that you have to address, but as far as parking in town, I know this, of course, there's a continuing problem of parking in downtown with all these people coming into town how is the committee or you going to address all these vehicles?
Yeah, I mean, each of these events is going to bring with it logistically a different issue, and most everyone will have a parking component because you're bringing people in, and that's how they're going to get here. So we're working closely with the committee and Park Plymouth on some remote parking areas, whether it's the mall, and we've done some of that already, actually, before this event to see how it works, and it works pretty well, shuttling people in and shuttling people out. So we're looking at all that, and I think the committee and Park Plymouth have identified quite a few other remote places where you can park a couple thousand cars at the mall or a couple thousand cars here. And with that, we plan on this year practicing some of that on some of the events, just so when it comes to 2020, we've done it a few times. We already have, and it works pretty well. And actually, it's not even that expensive for people come in at $10 and you park for the day, and you get shuttled into town. So that's a big part of what we're looking at. Obviously, we can't park everyone downtown. Although once they open that parking at the top of Russell, I think we're all set. But just kidding. So it's definitely a piece. That's a piece of every one of these events is parking and moving people, because we're bringing people in where they're going to put their cars, where they're going to park. So, anybody else? Okay. Yeah, I look forward to doing something like that with training, and we're an open book. If you have any questions, reach out to us, or any specific issues come up, please feel comfortable reaching out to the police department, and we'll hopefully we can answer it for you, okay? Thank you.
Okay, so Chief just hit on the park. We have a parking and transportation committee as well, and it is made up of several different agencies and entities. Of course, Park Plymouth, P&B Bus, Destination Plymouth, and several other agencies, GATRA, MBTA, MassDOT. So that committee is working on this shuttle parking that the chief just mentioned, and we've been practicing that for the last 3 years with the parade. And it's been working nicely. Without a whole lot of promotion, we have moved 3,000 people the last 2 years. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot when you're considering that they're parking out away from the center of town, getting on a bus, taking a shuttle in. That has been a free service up until this year. This year we charged $5 a carload. So we're testing it, and that's what the intent has always been: is to test these types of operational things, these things that, we just kind of sometimes leave to chance. It's every man for themselves in the parking world. So having the shuttle parking for events specifically, we're not doing shuttle parking all week or, over the weekends. There is some talk about maybe doing heavy weekends, doing a shuttle, but we have been working on that. We do have a committee in place. And again, we have these committees in place, and anyone who is interested in being on a committee should contact us as well. They are committees of the board of directors, but they're not all directors that are on the committees. So please let me know if you have any interest in that. Does anyone have any questions about shuttle parking? I know that David is here and Paul is here, and they're both on the committee. Anybody? Okay, so that's kind of it in a nutshell. Don't forget that, there was one other thing I wanted to mention, because you talked about training, and this isn't exactly what you were asking, but we have an ambassador program. We just graduated our first 12 ambassadors. It is an intensive training program for people who will be on the streets during events and sometimes possibly during the weekends to let people know what's happening. Where's the bathroom? How do I get to this restaurant or that restaurant? What's going on today? So those ambassadors, that first class of ambassadors graduated in December. We're starting another class in February. you get a little bit of history, you get a whole lot of hospitality, and things like what you had asked Chief Botieri about. Those ambassadors, learn how to deal with a difficult situation or a difficult visitor. So it's kind of a smattering of all the things that could happen when you're answering questions to the public. So that's something that can be translated to your frontline staff. It does have a cost to it. I think it's $112, but it's 6 or 8 sessions. So it's pretty intensive, and you can actually go on and get an interpretive certificate if you wanted to take the second class after you finish the ambassador program. So that's something else that we, are trying to put in place so that people can have recognizable, something recognizable on, and they can answer questions to the general public. Does anyone have any further questions? Yes?
Michelle, is there going to be a central place, like a visitor center or information center that's dedicated? I'm sorry. Is there going to be a central location to serve as a visitor center or an information center?
Well, we have a visitor center in the center of town, and that will carry all of the information. And then we also have the Route 3 Visitor Center, which will also carry the information. And then we are also working with the Cape Chamber, and probably will have some information at their Hyannis Visitor Center to help people understand what's happening and what events are happening and how they can get around to these places. Yes. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yeah, so if you have any questions and you can't get to us, you can certainly go into the visitor center in the center of town, or you can go into the Route 3 Visitor Center, and they will have information. And Jack heads up the visitor centers. One of them, right?
We're at the one right on the waterfront.
Okay.
And we tell all the tourists where to go.
Jack tells all the tourists where to go. Okay. Yes, and then Ted Curtin runs the other visitor center, right, Paul? Ted Curtin runs the Route 3 Visitor Center. If you don't know Ted, he's lived here forever, and he's Donna's husband. So we have 2 really great outgoing visitor center heads that really do a great job in training the staff. Anybody else? Yes.
Is there a plan to advertise all these events outside the immediate area in Massachusetts to get that wider crowd? That's question 1.
Yeah.
Question 2 is you have an expectation of an increase in tourism. What's the expectation? What do you think is going to happen?
You want to come up here? What was question 1?
Question 1's advertisement.
Yes.
Is it being advertised outside the area? Question 2
Right.
is what's the expectation for the increase in tourism?
Yeah, so we work with Destination Plymouth and Plymouth County Convention and Visitors Bureau, which is a regional tourism council. Do you want to just take this? I'm gonna let Paul answer those questions because we advertise in tandem with them.
Who asked the question? All right, just wanted to be able to address you. We have a pretty robust program. You don't see it here because we're busy everywhere else. So we have an international program, principally Canada, the Pacific Rim, United Kingdom for sure, even France, which scores in the top 5 international markets that come here. So we're busy with that. We go to trade conference shows in this country and outside of here also, not only for the distant domestic international, but also for the group market. We advertise with distant domestic through AAA and a host of other programs. We probably put about 50 programs a year together and spread those across the country and across the world. And as far as the expectation for revenue, Right now, the town of Plymouth visitor spend is $350 million, according to the town. If you balance that to what the visitor spend is in Plymouth County, it's $700 million. So we figured that that's about right to have a little bit more than half. Our expectation for the 400th, room rates will go up, there's no doubt about it. We're building more hotels in the region and in the town, so that will bring occupancy up also. If you even just doubled what we were going to do, you'd have a pretty robust visitor spend here in the town. We won't be able to house everyone. We'll be sending people to other parts of Plymouth County and other parts of nearby counties, Barnstable County, Bristol County, Norfolk County as well, possibly the Metro West area. We've done that before, even in our better times in 2001. We were sending people from Jack's Visitor Center all the way up to Marlborough. The thing that you might not see is that visitors are hungry for this story, and everyone has a different slant to it. The Germans love nature. They love the nature down here, and they'll walk these parks and bike these paths. And the Japanese will come through here, and the Chinese taking pictures and moving 1,000,000 miles an hour. Some of them like the native story, some of them love the pilgrim story. It's a very attractive story. We live in it, so we don't really have such a sense of it maybe as the wonder that other people do have. But I guarantee you there is that wonder, and you will see a lot of very happy people coming here with a lot of great expectations, and it's up for us to host them. That's really what we're doing. We're inviting them into our living room, and it's our job to be as good a host as possible and share such a great story that we have here. Anything else for me? I actually didn't intend on speaking tonight. I'm shy, in case you didn't know.
If I can just add, I mean, with the advertising that is done, at the Visitor Center down on the waterfront, we have people sign our guest book, and we put up flags for all the different countries that come into our little visitor center down there. And we put up as many as 100 international flags in one season. And so we see people from around the world, and they really enjoy coming to Plymouth. And you can tell where the advertising has been very effective that way. And many of those people go on to TripAdvisor, and they tell everybody to come down to the visitor center first, because we'll help tell them where to go and what to see and do. So we work well as a team, and the advertising is definitely very effective, getting the people in town.
Well, thank you, Jack. That just got you $1 an hour raise. All right, anything? Sir?
Yeah, it's our little visitor center on the waterfront and on Exit 5. We're going to be able to handle the volume, because we got a busy July and August day now, and there's a line out the door. We don't have the proper bathrooms there. I don't see how we're going to, or is there a plan for that to improve what we have?
I can answer your question is that we aren't large enough in the visitor center on Water Street, and it can be an interesting challenge even out on the highway. There will have to be, and I have been barking this for quite some time, some augmentation somewhere to host all of these people. It's a challenge now, and with the State Pier the bathrooms there being under renovation this spring, the challenge even comes in 2019. So hopefully there will be some people who are addressing that. I know it was discussed at the Visitor Services Board meeting tonight as to what's going to happen in the future, and I'm sure that they'll be working with Michelle to try and come up with some other plan and to fund some other mechanism. It has to be done.
I just wanted to make a statement that at Logan Airport, I see a big banner talking about this event, so that's quite the place to have this advertised.
Yeah, we will get anything we can get. We actually get Logan Airport pretty cheap. And if you fly JetBlue or American Airlines, you probably see our airline video out there too. So we cover a lot of different places. I call it woodpecker marketing. You gotta hit everything and hope for the best. All right, thank you very much.
Okay. that's a lot of information for one night. We're going to do this again in probably 6 months, 5 to 6 months, when we have more detail. But as I said, you are all part of this 400th anniversary. This is the tip of a big iceberg. And everything that you do in your business, everything that you do as a citizen of this town, really can reflect well on the visitors who come here, on the students who come here, on the people who want to learn more about this commemoration, and who want to learn more about this history. So I thank you all for coming tonight. If you have further questions, staff, did I get everything? Yeah? Okay. So if you have further questions, you can ask them out in the lobby. Thank you all again very much for coming. Really appreciate it. Thank you.